Garrett Blevins here with an overview of the last kind of week and a half. Things have been really busy lately. Just kind of with the end of the semester, I'm still on that school schedule. And so although finals for me weren't too stressful or anything like that, it was just a little bit of a difficult week in general. Had to deload a lot this week, cut sets out, and lower the weights across the board. Some of it had to do with doing safety squat bar work in flat shoes. I found that this really taxes my calves and ankles. It just puts a lot of strain, especially on my right ankle, so I'm starting to do these again with a heeled shoe. Just the range of motion in general seems to cause some problems. Here you'll see some of these long pause benches. For any of my clients who are out there, you may have 4-count pause benches in your program. If that's the case and they bother your shoulders, holding the bar down that low for that long, feel free to shorten the pause. That was something that I found I needed to do when I moved into the longer count pause work. I would just get too tired doing sets of 5, and I know if I was doing sets of 7 or sets of 9 or something like that with these, it would be even more difficult just to hold that bottom rack position and also not slide on these benches. And so I just shortened up the pause a little bit. That's pretty much for recovery. And that's something to do just in general throughout your training. You can always auto-regulate sets and reps, but sometimes you can make the motion a little bit easier on yourself. If close grip is beating you up and the weight's really heavy, maybe take your grip out half an inch as you go through your training cycle and go closer to your competition grip that you're stronger with, if in fact your competition grip is wider than your close grip. Anyways, those are things you can do to help yourself auto-regulate. You'll notice that I'm doing deadlifts here without a belt. I believe later in this string of videos you'll see some deadlift without a belt. My conventional pull has been getting a lot better. I'm learning how to brace into the belt. The belt seems to make me stronger now instead of weaker, which is something I've been working on. And it's starting to look a little bit cleaner. Before, when I would do conventional pulls, I would really get out in front of the bar too much, and so there'd be this long sweep where I would have to really pull my back all the way back like a good morning. Here I'm staying a little bit more of an upright position, even at the bottom of the deadlift, and this is allowing for a much shorter range of motion and a more efficient range of motion, which is helping me out, especially since my hips are pretty beat up. They've been beat up pretty much all year, and I'm having to kind of move away from sumo. I'm going to be trying some different things. I think I've got some voodoo floss coming on the way that I'm going to mess around with and see if I can get my hips healthy enough to sumo in this next meet. But if not, well, then it's just not going to work out. Now, I've been doing some different warm-up work as far as on day 1, where I'm working up to a single at an 8 to kind of give me an estimated rep max to do some of the heavy triples work that I've been doing. This is following kind of the general RTS principles of working up to a heavy single to let you know where you're at for that day, and then moving on. I've been pretty happy with the weights I've been able to move, both this last week with 635 and this week with 655. Those 655 went a little slower than I would have liked. Part of that was just general stress, needing to deload in general. It's one of those things that you can't really tell on any particular week if you're going to be beat up and need to take a break. On this particular week, I was really beat up, and this day working with a 585 really drilled me into the hole all the way, where I just had to pull back on the rest of the week. For bench press, I moved up to 455 as my kind of test at 8. I thought this moved pretty well. I felt pretty strong throughout the movement. 405 that I did before that was like RP6 and went really well. However, I went on this AMRAP. I decided to push it, which I shouldn't have done. It was another thing that kind of pushed me into the hole of fatigue this week, and went for a 7th rep, which would have been a PR, and I just really shouldn't have done that. I got a little out of the groove on this one, touched a little too low, and I didn't want to grind and fight with it too hard, so I just bailed on the rep. You'll notice that here I threw on my belt. The first rep there was actually kind of slow. What's weird about my conventional pull is that the speed of the reps kind of stays consistent across all the reps. I don't notice a lot of bar speed slowing. It just kind of is how hard did it feel for that particular first rep, and that usually tells me how the rest are going to go as well. I can rep deadlift okay, especially with lower rep ranges. That first rep was a lot smoother than the first set. I just got in a better position. I'm still working on getting really good at reps because I like to get a little quad into the pull, and it is hard to get my knees forward over the bar when I'm doing reps. This was the last set of the day. I think I kept it with triples, if my memory serves. And I did use straps for this one as well, where I had not, I don't believe, on the other two. But it moved pretty well, especially for 565. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit more on this Christian ethics series. My wife and I were doing just some reading over the Christmas break here, and we were reading through Micah, a book I hadn't really gone through recently. But I was reminded of how tied together justice is to well-being and a community of well-being. The Hebrew word for that is shalom, often translated peace, but really it refers to wholeness and well-being in a very general and deep sense, that all things are in their proper proportion, all things are right. And this can never happen in a society or in a relationship between just two people unless there is justice and equality present. Now, one of the best ways, or I would say maybe one of the worst ways to mess up justice, is to have the objectification and the commodification of people. And this is present pretty much in all cultures and all times. Probably the best example of it would be slavery, where a person is literally turned into a commodity to be bought and sold and to have their life used by another person. The opposite of that in the Christian ethic is the voluntary giving up of yourself in service of others. In one, a person is forcing somebody to do something for them against their will, and is using them to accomplish their own end. A slave, therefore, could be used to accomplish the end of planting a field so that that person who owns them can harvest the crop and sell it for a profit to make their own life better. On the flip side, though, you have a voluntary service of love that is also possible, where one person gives up of their own, maybe their own goods, giving to someone who is in need, or of their own time, giving quality time to somebody else to assist them or just to be present with them, out of love and care for that person. When you have that going on, when it is a loving relationship, somebody is giving up of their self willingly for the benefit of another, treating them as an end in and of themselves. The person who is loving that person ought not to love them to get something in return, but loves them simply because they love them. On the flip side, the commodification or the objectification, making a person an object, is never about the person who is becoming an object. It's always about the person who's doing the objectifying. They're objectifying that person for their own benefit. And I thought that this passage in Micah really got at that in a kind of visceral way, whereas Micah is calling out the rulers and the false prophets who are deceiving the people and using those people to make their own lives better. He talks about them almost as eating as cannibals who tear the skin off the people and their flesh from their bones, who eat the flesh of the people. And this is really what people who use others as objects do. They turn them into commodities, like a hamburger, something to be consumed for their own pleasure, their own benefit. And any logic or any way of living that uses that sort of treatment of another person runs contrary to the justice and the love that is present within Christian ethics. And any time that you've seen or heard of the church throughout history doing that, the church kind of at large has been at odds with its own ethical principles. And there are a number of examples of that as you go throughout history, where flawed people have missed the mark and gone astray. So I'll probably be doing some more talking on objectification in general, as well as some more Christian ethics. The next class that I'm in for this next semester is a Christian ethics course I've been looking forward to taking, so look for some more on this. Again, sorry for the delay in some of these videos. It's kind of been busy over the holidays and at the end of the fall semester, so hopefully we'll get some better upload frequency. I hope wherever you're at, you're doing well. Blessings.